I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Omni viewer, and I'm back to do another Kaiju Collectible review. This time of the slimy variety.
A few months ago, I reviewed Mezco Toys' 2 Destroy All Monsters sets. I reviewed the sets out of order because that's how I received them, but overall, I was not disappointed. Despite a few paint issues here and there, the overall quality was astounding for such small figures, not to mention how the set included kaiju that don't always get that much attention in the collectible field.
Today we'll be looking at a Mezco set that adapts one of the more infamous entries of the Showa series, Godzilla vs. Hedorah.
We must take a moment to appreciate the box art here. Unlike the Destroy All Monsters set, which was a photo collage based on old movie posters, this appears to be an original painted piece. It reminds me of Bob Eggleton's style, though I don't see a signature or credit anywhere, so I don't know for sure that it's his work. The proximity of Hedorah's glaring eye to the onlooker is appropriately creepy, and the use of nasty blues and greens creates an unsettling atmosphere that lends itself well to the overall pollution aesthetic. Godzilla appears to be more based on the Heisei version than the Showa version, but the design still looks good. Otherwise, the sides each display the 2 monsters within, and the back has a look at everything within the box. Once opened, everything is securely held in place between 3 plastic trays, just like the other sets, and everything arrived intact. If nothing else, I must give Mezco credit for making sure nothing gets jostled around in the box. Like the other set, bases are included. I may as well note here that I couldn't fit the feet of either kaiju onto the pegs for these bases, which is not a problem I had with the other sets, but I'm not too disappointed because the figures don't need them to stand. It's just weird that they don't fit.
We may as well begin our analysis with Godzilla, since he's the most familiar figure in the set.
The same suit from Destroy All Monsters was used in Godzilla vs. Hedorah, so naturally this figure is going to look an awful lot like the one from the other set. In fact, from the shoulders to the toes, it's the exact same figure, so rather than repeat myself, I'll just encourage you to follow the link and watch the other video for a deeper analysis. However, you may notice that there are some new things to talk about here. First of all, the color is a bit greener on the new figure than on the original. It's not a difference of night and day, but when you put them side by side, it is noticeable. The head and tail are also totally new sculpts. While the first figure's tail stretches out mostly straight behind it, the new figure's tail curls to the left and points forward. Just that one change completely alters the dynamic of the pose, making Godzilla look more like he's on defense rather than offense. As for the head, the first major difference is how the mouth is shut, as opposed to the wide open or partly open mouths on the other figure's 2 switchable craniums. Then of course we have the battle damage on the left eye. Get close enough and you can see that this isn't just the normal eye painted over. There's a textured eyelid over the socket, and a hint of toxic residue is painted on to emphasize the wound.
That's an attention to detail I really appreciate. They could have been completely lazy with this figure, but they weren't. For details on everything else, though, again, go watch the Destroy All Monsters video. Now that we've finished with the familiar figure, let's move on to the G-Man's opponent for this set, the Smog Monster.
The first word that comes to mind upon seeing this figure is wow. Mezco has been great in getting the details right on these kaiju, and Hedorah does not disappoint. All of the disgusting tendrils and oozing cracks are rendered with near perfection. Even the bottom of his tail, a part most of us probably never actively think of, is textured. The only parts of him with no detail are the bottoms of his feet, which are flat and featureless except for the peg holes and the trademark stamp on the left. That's fine though. Sludge tends to take the form of whatever it's up against, so if Hedorah is standing on a flat surface, it makes sense that his feet would be flat as well, thus preventing him from joining the army.
I feel like I got a bit sidetracked there, so let's get back on track and talk about the paint.
Overall, the figure is a disgusting grayish green, but there are plenty of colorful highlights. Given how he usually appears at night with dark lighting, it's easy to forget that Hedorah is actually quite a colorful kaiju, but given his nature, he's colorful like an oil slick as opposed to a rainbow. Red, yellow, and light green can be found all over him. but they really stand out on his back, the colors making those swollen pustules look downright infectious and ready to burst. The eyes look the best of all. In fact, they look so perfect that I wonder if they're decals rather than paint jobs, but I'm not about to try scratching them to find out. In terms of articulation, Hedorah follows the advertised 5 points that Mezco so proudly uses as a selling point. As is common with other figures, you can move the head, arms, and legs, but not the tail. To my surprise, the head can rotate in a full circle without the tendrils getting in the way. The arms can only complete a limited arc before the body inhibits them, and while the legs can rotate in theory, they are very stiff, and the interlocking tendrils make them difficult to work with. Not that I think many people will be moving the legs anyway.
Then, of course, there is the flying form.
As you can imagine, this iteration has no articulation because, well, it has no limbs. Still, the detail is every bit as exquisite as on the main figure. The paint is not as colorful, but the texturing has a nice roughness to it, and the eyes are just as bright and expertly realized as on the main figure. The only place the sculpt is broken is in the middle of the underside, where we find not only the trademark stamp, but also a hole for the stand, which I may as well include in this section. This is the only stand that is completely transparent in the Godzilla sets thus far, and it consists of a simple clear square with a hole to accommodate a clear rod. Now, the flying Hedorah does not fit comfortably onto the stand, or at least mine doesn't. I've had to really twist and push to make sure he stays put, all the while being careful not to break the stand itself. And even after all that effort, just a light tap is all it takes to make him fall.
Again, this may just be on the one I got, but you can never be sure. Then, of course, we have a plethora of accessories.
2 of these extra items directly affect Hedorah's appearance. You may have noticed that the main figure has 2 notches at the top of his suggestively shaped eyes. The left eye is meant to accommodate this convex eyelid, which is only textured on the outside. This is in reference to how Hedorah loses his own eye after taking Godzilla's when the finale begins. When attached via the peg at the top, it does not lie flat, but instead bulges out a little. In a way, that actually works in the figure's favor, as it makes the closed eye look swollen, like an actual wounded eye should look. The right eye, meanwhile, can accommodate this incredibly fragile red eye laser. As you can see, this is not just a recolor of Ghidorah's gravity beams. Rather, it is a new item that's more jagged and odd-looking. When attached, it really brings the look together.
But again, be very, very careful with it, as it is incredibly fragile. I cannot stress that enough.
Then we have what the set calls the poison orbs, but which most fans will know as Hedorah eggs. We have 2 of these odd little spheres, each one painted in a mottled chalky white with brown patches on one side. Now, some promotional stills show the Godzilla figure holding these things in his hands, but I'm here to tell you right now that he cannot do that, and there's no way to secure either of them to the accompanying bases. Really, I'm not sure why they were included in the set at all. If any pieces are guaranteed to get lost other than the eyelid, it's these things. Lastly, we have the factory buildings. These 4 structures each have their own distinct designs, but all share a similar cinder block gray color scheme, apart from the silver silo. The 3 taller buildings have pillars of noxious fumes rising from their smokestacks, and these are realized with translucent gray plastic. This allows them to look vaporous while still being solid. When placed alongside the monsters, they provide a sense of scale that these smaller figures very much need. That pretty much covers it. I was impressed with Mezco's other foray into the Godzilla series, and with this set I can find hardly any flaws at all. The set is not cheap, but the price has so far brought quality with it, and this really ups the ante.
Naturally, I would never tell you to buy beyond your means, but if you're a Godzilla vs. Hedorah fan, I would say this set is well worth it. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni viewer signing off. Still waiting for Mezco to say something about a Destroy All Monsters Wave 3. But until that happens, if it ever does, we have Mothra to guide the way.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also, check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.